Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is January 12th. It is 6:30 p.m. We have a quorum of council members in chambers, and we have a council member online, so I am calling us to order. The City of Bastrop reserves the right to reconvene, recess, or realign the regular session or called executive session or order of business at any time prior to adjournment. If you are in the audience or at home, if you please stand, we'll say the pledges to both flags. If you would please remain standing, we are honored to have Chaplain Sparks with us tonight, and he'll be giving us our invocation.
Let us pray. Lord God, thank you for being here. Thank you that you promised that when we call upon you, that you'd be here. We welcome your presence. Thank you for the peace and goodwill that you've blessed this city with and the unity that you've blessed this council with. Lord, give us all the wisdom that we need for these days that we're in. Give this council the wisdom to make all the decisions they need to do, and thank you for the health and the blessing of prosperity that you've given us. Let your peace pour out through this place and from this place, not only in this city, but let it flow to our state capital, our nation's capital. Lord, we call upon you and we ask you for your mercy in these times. And we thank you for all the blessings you've given us and for the love in your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you very much, Chaplain Sparks. You may be seated. All right. Colin, we're going to move on to the mayor's report. I have a couple things to say before we jump in. One is Mr. Peterson's under the weather, so we absolutely wish him the best, and we're glad that he is home and getting better. So we'll look forward to seeing him at our next council meeting. Before we get started, a couple of things. Some of you may already know, but I want to just mention to the public because we're always aware of our sister cities and the other folks in our county. Joanna Morgan was sworn in as the Smithville mayor last night. And so she will serve in the mayor capacity until the election in May, which you'll hear about more later tonight on our agenda. And I have served with Scott Saunders and wish him and his family the very, very best. And I've had an opportunity to spend a little bit of time with Mayor Morgan, and I'm looking forward to working with her. But I just wanted to let folks know that that did happen at the Smithville Council meeting last night. And at the last mayor's report, I told you guys that I was going to play cahoots with the ACES kids, and I would only report back if I did good. They killed me. It was about Harry Potter. It was a ton of fun, and if I had had my sons with me, I think I could have won, but I did not. And so although the cahoots was fun, I did not do well at all, but we all had a great time. And with that, I think we can go to the next page. So I am showing you again in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see that we participated in the TML Region 10 meeting, and I mentioned that as something that several of us did at our last council meeting. But the most important thing, if we will all shift our attention to Madam Secretary Franklin, Bastrop, for the first time in a number of years, won the attendance award for the TML Region 10 meeting. So we made it to the plaque, and we'll be proudly displaying that. So that was a fun thing to do. Below that, you'll see the D.R. Horton Pecan Park. We had our very first ribbon cutting of the year, and I am standing there with Danielle Robert, and man, that girl is committed to D.R. Horton. And with a name like Danielle Robert, she's like, I put the D.R. in D.R. Horton, and they are selling houses as fast as they possibly can. She is a dynamite advocate for Bastrop, and just really, it was a lot of fun to get to know her and to participate in that. If you go to the upper right-hand corner, you will see that that is our board member, Lisa Neese. She was working the library open house, and I stopped by there. I know several of us did during the time of the library open house. And this is not a complete picture. It was just one quick shot that I did, but the great homes, because I know right off the bat, Chief Nagy's like, I don't see the police department, graham cracker house, but we had some great stiff competition, but the utilities department won in the group, and Sally Keinert won for the individual. It was a lot of fun, and they made 318 kits. And interestingly enough, some folks signed up for a kit and they may not have been able to make it, and so they made sure that the kits got distributed to through CASA and through some other places to make sure that the time that they took to put the kits together all got taken care of. And then on the bottom right, on December 17th, I was honored to take the very first e-cab ride, and on the left is a picture of the cab, and on the right is Mayor Pro Tem Nelson and myself standing in front of the cab. If you have not downloaded Carts Now, you need to do that. Some of you may have seen our superstar Mayor Pro Tem Nelson on KXAN. They came out and filmed him, and they started the service. The van service has a bigger area than the e-cab, because the e-cab is geo-fenced to where the electric cabs can go. The electric cab rides are free. The van rides are $2, but they're $1 for elderly. I don't think they check your ID. And they are $1 if you're disabled, and they are free for veterans. The van rides, they're set up for COVID. They can handle wheelchairs, and they go almost to the entire city limits. So if you download Carts Now, I would really encourage you to take advantage of that application and getting around town. It's a lot of fun, and it works really, really well. If you go to the next slide, you'll see some of the planned events that I had between when I turned in the report and tonight. It's worth noting that the 87th legislative session began this morning, so they're already filing bills that we're taking a look at. And if we go to the next page, you'll see that there is a Dreamfinders Homes, their ribbon cutting is tomorrow. There is an event, Film Bastrop Launch Take Two. They tried to launch in March. It was going to be during South by Southwest, and it was a week after the emergency was declared. So that's why they're calling it Take Two, a little spin on the film. I do want to take a moment to talk about January 18th. The city offices will be closed in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. But we know, because council, we've all participated in the past MLK days, but during COVID, it is the year that Smithville is hosting, and they have really gone above and beyond to be able to provide a virtual event, but a very meaningful event. One of the things, and I'll talk about it a little bit later when we get to the proclamation, but we've done a countywide proclamation. They have you can basically, as if you were going to the program, there's videos that you'll be able to pull down and go one to the next and see people talk about what MLK meant to them. There's several programs that are included in that. There's opportunities to volunteer. You can walk and see historic relevant locations in each of the 3 cities. It's just hats off to Smithville. They have really, really done a good job. And Bastrop, the city of Bastrop, will be hosting next year in 2022. And some of you will not be surprised that Ms. Gleason, our assistant city manager for communications, is starting the work on the 2022 event on January 19th. So we will make sure that we spend the time necessary to have a really good event next year. On the 19th, I will be going to the BISD board meeting to make a presentation to them. You see the ribbon cutting. I've got a couple of other board meetings, and then we will be back at City Council on January 26th. There are two other things that I'd like to mention, and that is on January 23rd at Fisherman's Park between 8:30 and 11, they are having their bird watching bird sit. And you sit in a circle, and it's really cool because there's somebody who knows a whole lot about birds that's sitting in the circle with you. And the way that it works is it's the birds that you can see, the birds that you can hear while everyone's sitting still. And people can come in and out of the circle. They've made the circle bigger so that there's the 6-foot distance. And they said, you know, if you want to get fancy, you can bring a blanket and sit down and bust out your picnic and your binoculars and everything else, but you can also just show up with yourself in a lawn chair or show up and sit on the grass if you want. But they are doing that once a month, and in January it's on the 23rd, February 27th, and March 27th. So really kind of a cool thing to do, but I wanted to share that with you. And last but not least, on January 19th, Councilmember Jackson will be celebrating his birthday. So let's have a round of applause for Councilmember Jackson and his birthday. That is the end of my mayor's report. And as last council meeting, we let the birthday girl go first on city council reports. We'll let the birthday boy go first. Councilmember Jackson.
Well, thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to it. I have 3 days of celebrations. My MLK on the 18th, my birthday the 19th, and the inauguration on the 20th. But I just want to say that I attended our Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting, and there's so many different projects going on with the Parks Board that they're really excited about. Really excited about the sidewalks that have been extended down to Fisherman's Park and the upcoming work on the skate park, which has been long overdue, that we're going to finally get taken care of, and just so many other things and some other surprises that you'll hear more about later, but excited about that. About the MLK Day, this is the 32nd year that we've had the walk, but the first time it's been virtual, and I just want to applaud you, Mayor, and Rebecca Gleason and Colin Guerra also for working so hard to get some of the logistics together for the city of Bastrop's part of the committee. And because the commission has really worked hard, but the 3 cities and the county have worked also along with the school districts and others to make sure this is an event. And we hope that people will tune in, and I know we'll talk more about it later, but we're really trying to get the scholarships together for those 6 high schools in Bastrop County. And it's really going to be important, since it's virtual, that happens. So thank you again, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Councilmember Jackson. Councilmember Rogers?
Yes, Mayor. Well, we didn't have a Main Street meeting in December. Right, Rebecca? Did I miss it? Anyhow. I was like, I'm pretty sure we
That was
didn't have
last year. Who remembers,
okay.
right?
But we have Main Street meeting tomorrow night, and that's everything I have to update on.
Excellent. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Nelson?
Just to reiterate that the legislature began today, and Thursday we have a legislative update to begin learning what we may have to deal with on a more regular basis. And then also tomorrow I have a meeting, a virtual meeting with CAPCOG's, our executive committee meeting, that will be also discussing the legislative agenda and other such items. So stay tuned for a report next time.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Nelson. I want to personally thank you for all of the work that you do with Campo and CAPCOG and making sure that regionally that we're well represented. So thank you for those efforts. And also a shout out to Senator Eckhart's office. They have immediately reached out and made sure that we're in contact. So we're well represented with Representative Cyrier and Senator Eckhart, and Bastrop's blessed to have folks that are looking out for us. Councilmember Ennis.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to dovetail into the Mayor and the Mayor Pro Tem's comments on the legislative session. In this week's agenda packet, They're online under our website. There's a tremendous write-up on bills that will be influencing cities. I urge our citizens to get online and read those. And we can use all the help we can get when it comes down to things that might get in our way of doing our business. Next week, I have Historic Landmark Commission meeting. And then my last, I'm looking forward to the last meeting of this month when we'll be presenting the task force, Cultural Arts Task Force recommendations. I would like to take this moment to compliment our city manager on his incredible weekly operational reports. They're very well put together. They're very informative for us as council. And I was particularly pleased to see that we were going to making some adaptations to our certificate of occupancy because I've heard quite a few concerns over it. But great job, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Councilmember Ennis. And with that, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember Ennis, for a great segue. I want to make a couple of introductions. Well, one introduction, and then acknowledge some folks that Council is already really familiar with, but who are at this evening's meeting, operating under slightly different roles and new titles. Sitting with us this evening is Shirley Ellis. Shirley, hey, thank you very much. Shirley is our interim building official. I have told you about her in a prior weekly memo. Councilmember Ennis's comments about us taking a look at how certificates of obligation, different subject, certificates of occupancy are handled, especially for those buildings and tenants where they're fairly simply going through a change of tenant and staying within the same use. We are looking to develop a straightforward and easily managed for the tenant and the property owner standpoint process for verifying that everything is okay with those existing COs. That is Ms. Ellis's initiative, along with several other great ideas she is bringing to the table. Those are ideas that come part and parcel with having a long, successful career and being as well respected in her industry that she is. She makes a business out of teaching folks how to be good inspectors and building officials. She gives back to her profession by serving on boards and committees, most notably the International Code Council, and she's been a real breath of fresh air here in the city, and we appreciate getting to know her. So thank you, Shirley, for being here tonight and everything you have done and will do for us. I also, again, want to acknowledge that there are folks in the room, and this is a bit of old news, but didn't want our first council meeting in January to go by without acknowledging it. Colin Guerra, who is here tonight in the same capacity he always is now our public information manager and hitting that job running, and appreciate the good feedback he's been giving Rebecca and me on better ways for us to engage and communicate with our public. Victoria Pensick is back in the room, busily typing away. Victoria was recently selected as a result of a competitive process to be our Deputy City Secretary. I was just meeting with Ann earlier this morning and listening to Ann talk about just how excited she is for Victoria in the role, and Victoria the person, and just what a great job she's going to do in that role. And sitting next to Victoria is Rebecca Gleason, who is now our Assistant City Manager. Council, hopefully you saw the press release that we issued about Rebecca and her new role yesterday. Just tons of positive responses from folks in the community and people who know her. So thank you for all of that. And Colin, we can go to the next slide.
Mr.
So-
City Manager, can we please have a round of
We
applause for
certainly
these great
can.
employees?
That's awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah, I am blessed to be surrounded by great people and opportunity to work with just a terrific team. Council, one of
Mr.
the,
City Manager.
yes, sir.
Oh, I just wanted to say that I just wanted to give out a special welcome back to Miss Ellis because she was with us previously
Sure.
and did an excellent job, and I'm sure she'll continue to do the great work that she did. She is outstanding, and I was just very excited to hear that she was going to be a part of the city of Bastrop again.
Thank you, sir. And Councilmember Jackson, I appreciate the phone call you made to me to say that after you heard the words. That was very meaningful and appreciated. Thank you. So, Council, on your agenda for later tonight is 3 items where we're asking you to consider various contractual agreements with other entities that help us administer our city council election, which is scheduled for May 1st. I also wanted to point out that the filing period for this round of council election starts tomorrow, and Ann and Victoria are ready to hand out candidate information packets to people who may be considering filing for a city council office, places 2 and 4. And as I described in Friday's weekly memo, there's information in that packet to folks who are considering filing for the office, how we will go about addressing their questions. It is good practice, just as it is for city managers to make sure that we're not selectively giving information to city council members. It's also good practice that we get into that habit with folks who are candidates for office as well. So the simple procedure will be if we get a question from a candidate, we'll certainly promptly answer that question, and we'll also be careful to provide the question and the answer to all of the other candidates as well. Not yet scheduled, but will be a few hour orientation from the city manager that will go over current city initiatives and how we're organized and that sort of thing. And that'll be an opportunity for candidates as a group to ask me questions. And we'll schedule that largely around their convenience, but we'll be targeting early March for that. And around that time frame, we will also schedule tours of city facilities, and the specifics and details there will also be driven by a schedule and a plan that works good for the council candidates. Thank you, Colin. We've had tremendous interest in our recreation programs, and won't go through all of the details there. Council, I think we've done a pretty good job of keeping you and the public well informed of that. But as of yesterday, we've offered 17 separate classes to 96 total participants. Terry Moore, who is helping us manage all of that, is doing a great job, and she's really excited about the success so far in getting the word out. And Colin, go ahead and go to the next slide. And thank you, Colin. Thank you, Rick Gullickson, for working awfully hard to make sure that the registration process was well known to folks and easy to navigate. And they pulled all that together in only a few days, and it looks and works great, getting a lot of positive feedback. And there's some photos there. One is of a cycling or a spin class that's actually operating outside of what we're now calling the Wellness Center. And yeah, we did allow that class to have the session outside, and as long as people are spread out, do it without masks. And that was the practice when that program was run by the YMCA as well. And the other photographs show fitness classes going on within the lumberyard, which is now being leased by the city of Bastrop. We will continue this plan for the rest of phase 1, which lasts until the end of March, and then our phase 2, where we will look to expand and change up our offerings a bit, is scheduled to start in April, and the city team, along with Ms. Moore, are busy thinking through what is workable and practicable and meaningful to offer in that regard starting in April. And council, I'll be back before you sometime in March to go over that in more detail. A little bit of an update on where we are with city employees being vaccinated, and thanks to Chief Andres Rosales for working through all of this with Bastrop County. And of course, we're paying attention to and following the state of Texas and Bastrop County guidelines for administering and distributing the vaccine. And we have given a priority which is consistent with those guidelines for firefighters and Bastrop police officers. And it is my understanding that as of today, all of those workers, firefighters and police officers who had a desire to be vaccinated, and no, we are not making that mandatory for city employees, they have all received the vaccine, and the county has opened that up further, and this would be again phase 1A and phase 1B of those statewide guidelines. We've also given priority to our linemen who work for BPNL and Public Works employees who take care of the wastewater treatment plant and the water plant as well. And they are now signed up and should be receiving the vaccine in just the next couple of days, as I understand it. And there are other city employees who are eligible as well under the 1B category, and the county has a list of those employees. And so thank you to Andreas. Thank you also to Tanya Cantrell for keeping up with that and helping with the communication with the city department directors and city employees who are eligible and signed up for receiving the vaccine. Council will also give you an update on where we are at the sidewalk project. Councilmember Jackson mentioned this during his council member report, and yeah, the Parks Board was pretty stoked about the sidewalks and especially the one on Farm Street, which is now complete. We have completed those stretches on Farm Street and Wilson Street, and there on the screen you see the most recent schedules for Laurel and Pecan Street, Linden Street, and Main Street. We are doing Main Street last. There are residents there on the northern stretch of Main Street that have particular issues with their irrigation systems that we want to make sure we're on top of. And so we amended the schedule to make sure we're ready to do that. And so that's the schedule. Really great progress is being made. And we've got some photographs here. The photo in the center is of Farm Street down towards Fisherman's Park, and the photos on the left and the right are of the recently completed sidewalk on Wilson Street. And of course, council knows we've had a lot of conversation with neighbors on Wilson Street who are concerned about traffic safety issues, and we are pretty convinced that this will help, and we will take it from there. We have scheduled for the next council meeting, as Councilmember Ennis mentioned a few minutes ago, council to consider a resolution from the Cultural Arts Master Plan Working Group. Essentially, what that resolution would do is create a cultural arts commission. The working group worked awfully hard to create a charge to that Cultural Arts Commission for council's consideration, and it was a fun project to work on for both Colin and me, and we'll see where that goes on the 26th. We have a grant application we need council to approve for the police department. We will hear a few quarterly reports from the Art Institute and the Opera House and the Museum and Visitor Center. Council, several months ago, you had a closed session discussion to describe a land swap with Grace Episcopal Church. We are now ready for you to formally. Oh, it is Calvary Episcopal Church. Huh. Well, I hope council approaches that with a little bit of grace toward the city manager. Calvary Grace, the really beautiful Episcopal church there on Spring Street. And then we have I think this will be structured as an amendment to a current development agreement with the Colony Mud that we'll bring before you on the 26th. And then the council meeting after that, first meeting in February, we are required to provide a racial profiling report by the Bastrop Police Department. Chief Nagy will present that to council on February the 9th, and he is also pursuing a Homeland Security grant that requires a resolution. And also on February 9th, council, we are going to present our first of many to follow quarterly reports. Just a whole bunch of work is going into this quarterly report. Thank you, Tracy Waldron. Thank you, Rebecca Gleason, and department directors for all the diligence in putting this together. It is, again, the first of many. We will covet the city council's feedback and ensure that what we're doing meets the mark. This will be organized around your council focus areas, your 9 focus areas, and we'll also provide an update on the status of each of our capital projects. The report will also include the standard monthly report that you're used to receiving from Ms. Waldron. This is really great information for council to receive a couple of times before your May strategic planning session that we've got planned for later in the year. That will be our council kickstart into the budget. And then after that, on February 23rd, the Curtis Hancock will bring you a phase 3, the third year 3 of the 3-year street maintenance plan. We will be ready to have council award a contract for the River Loop project funded by our 4B funds. It is time for our annual audit report that will be presented by Ms. Waldron and the auditor. In council, my employment agreement says I'll be evaluated in 6 months. It seems like yesterday, but that'll be due on February the 23rd. And I also wanted to share a local amateur photographer here in Bastrop took some snow photos, including the one of the Aggie snowman who is celebrating the coming in 4th in the final AP poll, which is really pretty cool. Some of us thought that was a big deal. But you can pan away from that. Some of you didn't care, but some of you play in the Big 12. So, and then there's the Old Iron Bridge at Fisherman's Park, the City Hall, and I think on the next one are some pretty cool shots of the convention center. Or is that the last one? No, there we go. So council, I think that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. City Manager, anybody have any questions? Mayor Pro Tem Nelson?
Which one of those pictures was Grace Episcopal Church?
Okay, but you just, no, we're
So much
extending
for grace.
We're extending
Calvary.
grace. Calvary. Okay, council, we're on the top of page 2. Item 4D is a proclamation for the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, recognizing January 18th, 2021 as Martin Luther King Day. And I don't want to spoil the surprise, but we did something different with our proclamations. In the past, each of the cities do their own and the county does their own, but what we did this year was a combined. And so council, with your understanding and with my ability as mayor, I am asking this 12th day of January for the 18th to be declared MLK Day. And when you go to the event, you can pull down a video and you can see all of the mayors, including Mayor Morgan, and the county judge, and we read that joint proclamation together and really recognize and spend some time with the dedication of Martin Luther King Jr. and what he has meant to this country and has the wonderful things that he's done and means to so many people. So again, please watch our Facebook page and our website. We will help you find the link to Smithville's virtual event. And just a shout out to the Martin Luther King Holiday Commission and the folks at Smithville that have worked so very hard. April Daniels and Jill Strube, for example, have just put in countless amount of hours to pull that event together. All right, we have no work sessions, and moving on to staff reports, we are on item 6A, receive presentation on the unaudited monthly financial report for the period ending November 30th, 2020, which feels like a really long time ago, Ms. Waldron. Ms. Waldron.
Well, I'm sorry, we just haven't had any meetings,
I
so
know.
here we are. So there's not a lot to report on this. It's 2 months into our fiscal year. I've provided a lot of explanation within the report. As far as the revenue, we're familiar with the hot tax being, it's behind our forecast, so obviously we'll continue to monitor that. Also, the cemetery and some of the other funds, we're looking at a little shortage of interest, so I'm running into some my interest is not coming in as high as I had hoped, but
I think we could all say that, Ms.
yeah, we'll
Waldron.
keep an eye on that. All expenses, actual to forecast, are all positive. Sales tax is very strong. Property tax is starting out strong. General fund, we're 87% actual to forecast, so that's good. On the water revenue side, we've started out the year strong to forecast. The expenditures by division were 91% actual to forecast. On the electric revenue, we're still over our forecast, so we're still positive there. Looking at the revenue, occupancy tax, we're about $202,000 less than we were same time last year. And the division, we're about 81% actual to forecast. Unless you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Ms. Waldron. Council, any questions? All right, thank you very much, Ms. Waldron. All right, Council, we're moving on to citizen comments. I had one card completed by Mr. Henderson, but I don't see him this evening, and I think he indicated that he was not going to be coming, so we'll put that one aside. Council, we received a letter dated January 8th from Mr. Kansari from Bayham Interest Limited Partnership at 407.5 Laurel Drive in Friendswood, Texas. In the letter, Mr. Kansari is expressing his views on the Main Street Rehabilitation Project, and you have all received a copy of that letter, and I wanted to make sure that you all have a copy of that letter. Moving on to the consent agenda. We have 3 items on the consent agenda. Does anybody want anything pulled from consent? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, if you'd please read the consent agenda.
The consent agenda reads as follows. Item 8A, consider action to approve City Council minutes from the December 8th, 2020 regular meeting. Item 8B, consider action to approve the second of ordinance number 2020-34 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, amending the Code of Ordinances affirming the creation of Assistant City Manager positions, addressing designation of an acting city manager, and removing the Director of Public Safety position by amending sections 9.02.004 and 9.02.005, and repealing Article 9.05, Division 2, and providing for findings of fact, repealers, severability, codification, effective date, proper notice, and meeting. Item 8C, consider action to approve the second reading of ordinance number 2020-33 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, amending the budget for the fiscal year 2021 in accordance with the existing statutory requirements, appropriating the various amounts herein as attached in Exhibit A, repealing all prior ordinances and actions in conflict herewith, and establishing an effective date. This concludes the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Move for
And
approval.
I thank you, Madam Secretary. I have a motion from Councilmember Ennis and a second from Mayor Pro Tem Nelson. Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Ennis,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers,
Yes.
And that is all of us. That is a unanimous vote. Thank you, council. We are done with page 2. Moving to page 3, items for individual consideration. Item 9A, consider and adopt on first and final reading ordinance number 2020-29 as an emergency measure ratifying temporary emergency orders enacted by the mayor in her capacity as the emergency management director in regards to the current local state of disaster for the immediate preservation of the public peace, health, or safety. Council, I have a short update and actually a small awards thing to do, and but I do not have an ordinance for you to approve. Many of you may have seen on the news, I want to get everybody up to speed. We are in Trauma Service Area O. There is A through V. We are in O, and O is made up of 11 counties. Dr. Hellerstadt, who is the health commissioner reporting to the governor, sent a letter to Judge Poppy dated January 10th. I saw the email at about 3 o'clock Sunday afternoon. Judge Poppy had a press release last night at about 8 o'clock. Because the percentage of people who are in the hospital with COVID is in excess of 15% for 7 consecutive days, we have to go to a higher level of restrictions. And that impacts 3 things for all 11 counties. Hospitals stop doing elective surgeries. Businesses that were operating at a 70% occupancy go down to a 50% occupancy, and all bars, if you are a full-fledged bar, you don't serve food, you are just a bar, the bar is closed. That is in line with the governor's executive orders that were done quite a while ago. I wanted to tell you just a little bit about Trauma Service Area O. I already told you it's made up of 11 counties from Bastrop to Williamson, includes Travis, and all the way out to Llano, San Saba, and Caldwell. It is a large, when you're a state the size of Texas, they're divided into really big chunks. So when I talk about this trauma service area, it is the 11 counties. There are 2,375,407 people. Don't ask me how it's 407. That's just the number that they're reporting on their website. Out of those 2.4 million people, there are currently 693 COVID patients that are in the hospital. But the percentage of those COVID patients compared to the number of people who are in the hospital, as of today at 4 o'clock, it was 17.8%. Yesterday, it was 19.35%. So that, as you can imagine, that number changes all the time. People are discharged from a hospital, people are admitted, they may come in with something else and then they get COVID tested. It's a lot of data. I understand that it's concerning that we are over 15%, but I want to make sure that we also know across those 11 counties, there are still 618 beds available. There are 40 ICU units available, and there are 285 ventilators available. So the logic of all of this is as you start bumping up against the ability for the medical system to respond, if the trigger was over 15%, you don't wait and close the door after the horses left the barn. That's why they are doing the additional restrictions. For many, many months, Trauma Service Area 0 had the lowest percentage of COVID patients in hospitals, that it has gone up after Christmas. So it's a number that's watched all the time, and as soon as we have 7 days below 15%, then we'll be back to 75%, we'll be back to elective surgeries, and the bars will be reopened. That's how it works. But right now, because we were at 7 days on Sunday, and Monday and Tuesday are also above 15, it is 7 days in the future would be the soonest that those things would change, and that would only be if we were below 15% tomorrow. Does that make sense? So let's talk specific to Bastrop County. Bastrop County Emergency Management is updating their dashboard once a week, and they update it this afternoon, as a matter of fact. So, and I think it may be late Monday for a Tuesday update. Right now in Bastrop County, we have 3,193 confirmed cases. That is up 216 cases from last week. We have 3,443 recovered cases. That is up 162 from last week. Our active, people who are actively being in that quarantine and recovery mode, are 651. That is up 163 from last week. So we got 163 more cases. We have 162 people recovered, and what we need is to get the lower cases added, have the recoveries go up, and get the actives to go down. That's why we have plexiglass. That's why we're wearing masks if we can't maintain a 6-foot distance. The deaths are 48 this week. Currently, from the beginning of the episode, we're at 48, and that is up 1 from last week. So that's how things are going in Bastrop County, that we want to try to keep those numbers low, but realize that the restrictions are based on the trauma service area, and we are one of 11 counties. Now, the topic that we all want to discuss, the vaccines. So there's been a lot of press about this today. They had been doing 1A for quite a long time, and Dr. Hellerstadt is encouraging providers to provide to 1B. 1A was the first responders. For Bastrop County, the vaccine plan that the Commissioners Court reviewed on Monday. They delayed their meeting till 1 o'clock, but they did have their meeting. They didn't finalize and vote on the COVID-19 vaccine distribution plan for Bastrop County, but they reviewed the draft, and I think they are planning on approving that at their next commission meeting. But they did things like, in first responders, we included law enforcement. Some organizations are not including law enforcement, but we know in Bastrop County, the police are right there as a part of the first responding team, so they are included, and that's why those folks have been able to get the vaccine, and we are also following the current rules. In the state of Texas, 2.06 million doses have been allocated, and that means Texas has received it, and they have said where they're going. 1.58 million doses have shipped. Shipped means I, as a provider, I've received it. And so that difference is, yes, Texas has gotten it. They're telling people where it's going, but the difference between the allocation and the shipped is it's on its way to the provider. There are 863,000 doses that have been given in the state of Texas as of 4 p.m. today. In the 1A and 1B category, they have first responders. They also have a contingency for continuity of government. The people that the city manager was talking about, the idea, can you imagine anything worse than having COVID, feeling miserable, and you have no clean water, no power, so the infrastructure to take care of folks that need help, that's why they're getting vaccinated, for that continuity of government. In Bastrop County, in public health, those regions are numbered because we can't, they just are. So we are in public health region 7. In the category 1B, it is anybody over the age of 65, period. If you are over the age of 65, you are included in 1B. If you are over the age of 16 and you have an underlying medical condition, which DSHS has a list of that definition, If you are over the age of 16 and you have an underlying medical condition, you are also in 1B. So because of that caveat that I've told you, one of the things they did is in Bastrop County only, the population of people 16 and older is 70,499 people. Now, not everybody between 16 and 64 has an underlying medical condition, but they had to do something to try to find out what the numbers would be. So if you are over the age of 16 and you live in Bastrop County, it's 70,500 people. People who have been vaccinated with one dose in Bastrop County is 1,410 people. People who have received both doses is 89. That is a total of 1,499 people who have gotten at least one shot in Bastrop County out of the 70,499 people who are over the age of 16, means that 2.1% of that population has been vaccinated. And just a quick comparison, also in Public Health Region 7 is Travis County. The population of people in Travis County that are over the age of 16 is 1,016,090 people. The people who have gotten both at least one dose, or one dose is 33,000 and a few. People who have received both doses is 3,700. You combine those two numbers together, 36,740 people in Travis County have gotten at least one shot. That is 3.6% of that population. Is that those numbers making sense? Of 16 and above, in Bastrop County, 2.1% people have gotten a vaccination. In Travis County, 3.6%. So when you hear that the hubs have been developed, and the closest hub to us is the city of Austin, they were shipped 12,000 doses this week, and they opened Austin Public Health opened the registration for people who were uninsured and underinsured. So I am fully aware there is a frustration of people who want the vaccine and can't get the vaccine. They are shipping it out as fast as they can. I was telling Councilmember Ennis earlier that at KXAN released a story at around noon, 1 o'clock today, that said HEB would start taking appointments for folks that are in the 1B category. I went immediately to the link, and it says, we don't have a vaccine allocation, but when we do, we will be taking reservations for 1B. I think we are really, in the next couple of weeks, we'll see a bunch more vaccines come in. But you can go to the DSHS website. HEB has set up, you can see that once they have a vaccine, you'll be able to register for an appointment. And Walgreens also has their website set up for that. So between your private doctor, pay attention to the website. We will be working with Rebecca and our communication team, and we are not holding information. We'll be sending it out as fast as we possibly can. So along those lines, it has been a long, almost a year. The Bastrop COVID-19 response team has worked just an incredible number of hours together, and this was an emergency response that was done in conjunction with the county. An example of one of the things that they've done is had the call center. People have been confused, and they've called that hotline. Last week, the hotline's now only running Monday through Friday. They took 79 calls, and it brings the total to 3,476 calls since this started last March. It's really important for folks to know that the majority of time that hotline is manned by volunteers. Volunteers who have gotten trained in the answers and know how to tell people which website to go to. I mention that because one of our volunteers got chewed out because they couldn't get a vaccine appointment, and the person said, "You are wasting tax dollars," and hung up on them. So look, grace is a good thing all the time. So we might want to be thoughtful of the volunteers that are helping us out. Colin, I think you have a special slide for me. So in Commissioner's Court, on Monday, there will be a test. I expect all of you to read this. What the main thing I want you to notice is that it is signed by the county judge and all 4 commissioners, and they are acknowledging the COVID-19 response team. And I want you to look to the right-hand side and see the Bastrop City employees, and I have been involved with this since the very first day. I have lost track of the amount of hours. When I think back in March, Trey was our acting city manager, Trey, Rebecca, me, the names that you see on that list, we spent hours and hours. That's why we have plexiglass and safety. It's why we were able to maintain our utilities and our facilities. And I know for a fact, and I am not speaking out of term, the Bastrop County Emergency Response Center could not have functioned without the city of Bastrop stepping up with the number of employees, and they didn't miss a beat with their regular job. They took care of business at home, and they took care of our public. And as a result of that, the county commissioners, and to make my point even clearer, one of the things that they did is each of these people listed will be receiving a challenge coin. It is very coolly decorated. It has the Texas flag and it has the logo of all 3 cities and the county on one side. And then it has, let me see if I can get this open. It has an actual, I don't know how, it's not really a picture because it's in the coin, but the coronavirus on the other side. And it's a recognition of all their work. Well, in keeping with how everything's been done, Colin helped on the design of the challenge coin. So we have always taken care of that. So I want to extend my personal thanks to each of those people. I have a certificate worth framing signed by the county judge and the commissioners, and a special certificate for each one of you, and a challenge coin for each one of you. Can we please have a round of applause for those people? I want to acknowledge and thank the Commissioners Court for doing that, and really just personally cannot thank you guys enough. There is not another group of people I can imagine us getting that done. And we even tested our feelings in there, didn't we, Mr. Job? Is everybody feeling okay? We did a lot of long hours and made sure we did I can't say that we did perfect every time, but it wasn't through a lack of effort in trying to do the right thing to protect the public. So with that, that is 9A. We will now be taking, Council, you will see that items 9B, 9C, and 9D all have to do with the election. I'm going to read all 3 of them. Ms. Franklin is going to make a presentation, and then we're going to vote on them individually. Councilmember Rogers?
Yes, ma'am. I have a question about your last report, and I understand how the businesses have to go from 75 to 50, and I understand all the reasons how. So just so our business community understands, where's the best place for them to get the information so they know when the 7 days is up, which, so the ones that want to follow the rules, what are you suggesting they go to make sure where they can call and check, or should they, so.
Great question. On the Bastrop County, because it's done at the county level, I would check the Bastrop County Emergency Management, their Facebook page.
Okay, so that's
That's
all the
the best
businesses
spot.
out there that you were talking to, that's where they need to go to check once a week to see where they qualify or what they
Yes,
don't
ma'am.
qualify. Okay, I just
Yes,
wanted you to
ma'am.
make sure everyone that was watching understood where they can go to get the information to stay within the rules. that you're
Great
talking
question.
about. Okay.
Great question. Thank you for asking. And when we reach that threshold, Dr. Hellerstadt will send another letter to Judge Poppy, and there'll be another press release. But the county, like I said, that's done at the county level. So their website, and you can call the hotline and find out if it's changed.
Okay, I just want to make sure
ways.
the public knew where to go
Excellent
get the
question.
information. Since it's changing every 7 days.
Yep.
It's an ongoing change. So,
You're exactly right. Thank you for that.
okay, thank you.
Very true. All right, council, we're moving on to elections. May 1st will be here before you know it. Item 9B, consider action to approve resolution number R 2021-01 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, calling for and establishing the procedures May 1st, 2021 general election for Bastrop, Texas, and providing an effective date. Item 9C, consider action to approve resolution number R 2021-02 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, approving a joint agreement between the City of Bastrop and Bastrop Independent School District for the May 1st, 2021 general election for Bastrop, Texas. Attached as Exhibit A, authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents and providing for an effective date. And item 9D, consider action to approve resolution number R 2021-03 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, approving a contract for election services between the elections administrator of Bastrop County and the City of Bastrop for the May 1st, 2021 general election for Bastrop, Texas. Attached as Exhibit A, authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents and providing an effective date. Madam Secretary.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As the mayor read into record, the three items you have before you, one is to ask you to call the election for May 1st, 2021, and establish the procedures for that election. The second item is to approve a joint agreement between the City of Bastrop and Bastrop BISD. The third one is to ask you to approve an agreement between the election administrator with the County of Bastrop and the City of Bastrop. In that election, the cost for us this year in being in the election, joint election with the Bastrop BISD, it would cost us $16,566.01. If for some reason Bastrop was able to cancel their election, I'm not saying that I've had any indication that would give me an idea that that's going to happen. I just want to give you the numbers in case that happened. In case we were in the election alone, it would cost us $24,400.23. But as I stated, I have not had a reason to believe that we would be in it alone. So right now, we're in it with Bastrop Independent School District. So the cost we're looking at right now is $16,566.01. And I want to give you a little bit of information about the precincts that we have in this election. The last election that we had for the City of Bastrop, we had 5 precincts. Since then, we have gone to 6 precincts. Precinct 1003 was split into 2, creating Precinct 1022. And we have a map that I'll show you up on the screen. So the map, the teal colored, that I believe is to, I don't want to misspeak, so let me look. That's the old precinct 1003. And I want to tell you which direction that is. I believe that's the west.
Yes.
The west of 71 is the old precinct 1003. And to the east of 71, that's precinct 1022. So I want to tell you why that came into being. According to the, it's a state law. When a precinct must have a minimum, a county precinct must have a minimum of 100 registered voters and a maximum of 5,000 registered voters. Precinct 1003 had reached its maximum amount of voters. So the Commissioner's Court for the county had the authority to split those precincts. So that's how we got to that point right now. So that's where we are with that. I hope that I've explained to you. You have any questions, please let me know.
But just for, I mean, I know that the council isn't voted by precinct or
Correct.
anything's done by the city. Just so our citizens understand, that doesn't make a difference for voting for council.
Correct.
Or voting for the BISD. It's still all one vote, all one council, correct?
Yes, ma'am. When a registered voter goes, they'll be given, because you could be, to your point, you could be in the new precinct and not be in the city limits. So they'll give you the ballot that is associated with your address.
Absolutely.
Right, I just want
Absolutely.
people to understand that just because a precinct's split, they're still voting the same way they did before. I just want to make sure the public
Yes.
realizes, just because it's split, doesn't make a difference on their voting on the.
Right, you're absolutely
Yes.
correct. The precincts are shared by the county, the city, and BISD.
Yep.
Yes.
So,
I just want to make sure anybody watching might have just signed in for a little bit and want to make sure they understood.
right. I also want to point out that all of the registered voters in that territory received notification of the division, as well as it was published in the newspaper for 3 weeks by the county. So, yeah. I also want to let you know that we will be making available the candidate packets upon tomorrow. Tomorrow, as the city manager stated, is the first day for applicants to apply for a place on the ballot. So we're looking forward to that, and
Is that at 8 a.m. ready for them?
that is an 8 a.m.
8 a.m. ready for them. All right.
Yes. So
Okay.
I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Council, any questions for Ms. Franklin? All right.
I move to approve?
Okay, well, we got to go through them one at a time. So we can do 9B. I don't have to reread them, but we're voting on Resolution 2021-01. I have a motion from Councilmember Rogers,
Second.
a second from Mayor Pro Tem Nelson. Any other questions or comments? Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Rogers,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Councilmember Ennis.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We're now going to Resolution number 2021-02.
Move to approve.
Second.
That was in unison. We're going to give that one to Councilmember Ennis and a second to Councilmember Jackson. Any discussion? Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Ennis,
Move to approve.
Councilmember Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Yes.
I'm still working on that.
Mayor Pro Tem
Yes.
Nelson.
Aye.
Mayor
Yes.
Pro Tem Nelson. Councilmember Rogers.
I'm not sure. Yes.
You guys are, keep me laughing, and that's a really good thing right now. That passes unanimously. We're moving on to Resolution number R 2021-03.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve from Mayor Pro Tem Nelson.
Second.
A second from Councilmember Ennis. Any discussion? Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson.
Yes.
Councilmember Ennis.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson.
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
All right, that also passes unanimously. Thank you. We are all set and looking forward to May 1st. Council, we're moving on to item number 9E. Consider action to approve resolution number R 2021-04, the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, approving a general services contract to ARC Technical Services, everybody else calls them ATS, for third-party building review and inspection service in an amount not to exceed $100,000 as attached in Exhibit A, authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents, providing for a repealing clause, and establishing an effective date. Ms. Bills?
Good evening. So tonight we're talking about signing a contract with ARC Technical Services, referred to in our department as ATS inspections. As y'all remember, we adopted the 2018 International Codes in the very end of 2019. With that comes building review and inspection requirements in our codes. By doing this, we ensure that all buildings in town are safe and will be sustainable as the city ages and those buildings age. Currently, we have a building division within the Planning and Development Department that involves, we've got budgeted a building official, a senior inspector, and a permit technician. So for the last, probably I think about almost a year, we've had building official / inspector and a permit technician off and on. We have been using ATS in that time frame to do some inspections. What we're proposing is that we'll have a building official position filled and the building technician, and we'll use ATS as our building inspector. What that allows us to do with the third-party service is it provides a scalable service. As we know, we're ramped up right now. We've got a lot of building going on in town, so we're very busy. They have multiple inspectors at their disposal, so they can send a couple people out. They're available. They can, they'll have different people, so we don't have to worry about vacation days and being able to cover inspections. And when we provide the inspection list to ATS by 4 p.m., those go for next day inspections, unless there's some issue, and we'll let the client know, but no longer than 48 hours for any inspection. We also, in the scope of work, have the ability to contract out the plan reviews as well. So that provides additional scalability for us if the building official has to be out. So for budgeting, we have the building inspector position budgeted on page 88 of the budget. What our plan is to use that salary savings and any associated budget items for that inspector to pay for the ATS contract. And we've also set our fee schedule such that we can recover costs. So we do have, if an inspection fails because the inspector wasn't ready for the inspection, we have an ability to recoup that cost. So, any questions?
Councilmember Ennis?
Yes, ma'am. When we have outsourced inspection in the past, we have lost a lot of sensitivity to our citizens. Where is ATS out of?
They're out of Austin. So they are a local. They are local.
They're not local.
They're not local, but they are in the area. One of the things that will happen when we help with that sensitivity is in the past when we outsourced the building department, we had the entire building department outsourced. The building official and all the review and the inspection were outsourced the last couple of years since I've been here. With an in-house building official, they'll be able to monitor the inspections, spot check them, and keep track of those inspections and how they're going. And if there is an issue, we'll be able to correct that in-house.
My concern is that this is one of those areas where our citizens have direct relationship or direct contact with their city. And I'm just really concerned about the way these folks handle our citizens and whether they've done it, they do it with a certain amount of cordiality and understanding
and that is actually in the contract scope that they need to be professional and uphold basically the city's values. And I think that is something that with a partial building department will be able to monitor, and if we see any issues with that, be able to correct that.
Well, I hope city manager and you, assistant city manager Job, you keep a close eye on this too. Not that Ms. Bills is not perfectly capable of doing that, but I think it's so important that we need to keep a real eye on how this is going.
Definitely, yes.
Thank you, Councilmember Ennis. Mayor Pro Tem Nelson?
So, but bottom line, this will allow us to be more responsive without compromising the safety or the integrity of our codes, correct?
Yes.
And under y'all's purview, I'm pretty comfortable with that.
Any other comments?
I move to approve.
I have a motion to approve
Second.
from Councilmember Rogers and a second from Councilmember Ennis. Is there any further discussion? Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll. Thank you, Ms. Bills.
Councilmember Rogers,
Yes.
Councilmember Ennis.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Council, we are moving on to item 9F. Consider action to approve resolution number R 2021-05 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, awarding a contract with Smith Contracting Company of Austin, Texas, in the amount of $3,930,997 for the construction of West Side Collection System Phase 1. Authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents, providing for a repealing clause, and establishing an effective date. Mr. Job. And I said phase 1 is because, yes, there's going to be a phase 2, and I don't want y'all to go, we already did that. So it's important that we know it's not everything. Mr. Job.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So just to give you a little bit of background and history, and I know you're all familiar with this, we've talked about it a lot. But this is the West Side Collection System that is part of our new plant that'll be built in the next item we'll talk about. And let me see if this helps. You can see phase 1 and phase 2 on the map, and phase 1 is where property had already been acquired. We were running some issues as we were acquiring the property, which took a little longer than we thought it would, so we wanted to go ahead and break this into 2 phases. This was originally 1 project, so we bid out the phase 1 first, and to me, this helps me if I look north to south. I don't know why. Maybe it works for you too, but you can see the plant there on the south side of this, at the very bottom of the screen. But bottom line is this is what we need to do to move forward. So, so let me just get to my spiel here. We had 14 bidders. We ranged from 3.9 million to about 10 million. Pretty competitive. We actually bid 2 types of material. One is a fiberglass reinforced polymer polymortar. That's basically a fancy word for really hard plastic pipe. And we did ductile iron as well. We did that because back, if you'll remember, after Hurricane Harvey, there was a resin shortage, right? And plastic pipe was through the roof. So we wanted to make sure we were as versatile as possible, got as many bids as we could. The plastic pipe came back cheaper. Our engineer here with KSA has actually done the review, called in and making the recommendations, and we're here tonight to, again, award the Smith contract. They've had great references. They're under the engineer's estimate. Because this was 1 project and the original engineer's estimate was about 7 million, and this is 3.9, we broke down the linear foot of the pipe and we're actually still under the engineer's estimate. So if the whole scope won't be a remaining 3.2 million. So we think we're in good shape there.
And Mr. Job, it goes without saying, but just clarity for the community, both materials of pipe are perfectly acceptable to serve as a wastewater collector.
That is absolutely correct. Yes, some would probably even prefer the plastic pipe. It's much easier to work with. So with that, I'll take any other questions. Or if you'd like something really technical, we'll have Mr. Bob answer anything.
Council, any questions?
So to be clear, this came well under the engineer's estimate, correct?
It did come well under the estimate because the original estimate was for the entire scope of the project.
Sure.
Which was 7 million. But I can tell you the linear foot breakdown for 42-inch pipe, our engineer's estimate was $500 and this one came in at $289.
But when you come back for phase 2, it'll
Will still be under the engineer's
Still-
estimate, yes,
that's-
based on the prices we have today.
That's interesting. My other question, the mayor already took care of that, so I'm done. Move to approve.
I have a motion to approve from Mayor Pro Tem Nelson and a second from Councilmember Jackson. And I would just like to personally say, thank you, KSA. Really appreciated getting your letter. It's good to know that all of the bids were complete, and it's nice to see. I know, Council, from 3.9 to 10 feels like a really big range, but if you took time to look at, they were just stacked right on top of each other. So, and that's always a good sign, and certainly a good reflection on, a nice reflection on the engineer's drawings for the pricing to be that tight. So, Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Councilmember Ennis,
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We have a wastewater collection system. Now we need something to send it to. Moving on to item 9G, consider action to approve resolution number R 2021-06 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, awarding a contract with Bar Contracting, Inc. of Lancaster, Texas, in the amount of, ready for this, council? $26,369,000 for the construction of wastewater treatment plant number 3, authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents, providing for a repealing clause, and establishing an effective date. Mr. Job.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Again, this is something that's been a long time coming. If you remember, we've been talking about this since 2018. I'll bet you Mr. Hancock is jumping up and down in his seat right now at the House. Can't wait to get this started. Actually, there were 7 bidders on the wastewater treatment plant. It ranged from 26.3 to 32 million. Everybody met all of the qualifications. Everything was complete. The references have checked out, and we're going to recommend award. Oh, and again, this is under the engineer's estimate of 27 million. So we're just under that. And with that, I'll take any questions, and we'd like to award this contract.
Council, any questions for Mr. Job? Councilmember Ennis?
I was just going to move to approve.
I have a motion to approve from Councilmember Ennis
Second.
and a second from Councilmember Rogers. It's really important for the public to know that we just took 27 seconds to spend $27 million, but it's because we have spent hours and hours on this plant. It's state of the art. It's the right thing. We have the ability to expand. We cannot be a city if we cannot provide utility
We have to have
services. We
There's-
have to have it. So hats off to Mr. Job and our friends at KSA, the engineer that's done such a great job. Mr. Lane, I don't think you've done anything but Bastrop Wastewater Treatment Plant number 3 for a good long while. So I just want the public to know this is a long time coming and a lot of hard work's gone on behind it.
I think at one point, Bob actually told me there was 3/4 of the KSA staff working just on this plant to try to meet our timeline. So they've been great partners.
It's ultimately environmentally sensitive. It's the right thing to do for our citizens. It will give us long-time service and allow us to be a functioning municipality for decades to come. So thank you very, very much. Hats off to Mr. Job, to your team and to the engineer. Really appreciate everybody's hard work. Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Ennis,
I'm very proud to say yes.
Councilmember Rogers,
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson,
Proudly say yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson.
Glad we're able to come through with a promise. Thank y'all. Yes.
All right, we just spent $27 million. Let's have a round of applause. I know Mr. Hancock is really looking forward to having a plant that he doesn't have to stand on one foot to keep it functioning. All right, council, we're moving on to our final item. It is item number 9. And KSA, please don't feel obligated to stay. We appreciate you being here tonight, but I know you have a long ride home, so don't feel like you need to stay. We're on item 9H, consider action to approve resolution number R 2021-07 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, determining a public need and necessity for a micro-mobility hub at the corner of Spring and Main, and authorizing the city's attorney to make the necessary changes to Chapter 12, entitled Traffic and Vehicles, needed to provide designated parking for a micro-mobility hub vehicles during the standard operational hours, providing for a repealing clause and establishing an effective date. Mr. Joe.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. If you'll remember, Mr. Marsh with Carts came in and spoke to us a while back, and we talked about micro mobility hub. And at that time, they weren't asking for anything, but we were instructed to, okay, no feedback, just checking.
Yeah.
So we were instructed to go back, take a look at this, have HLC look at the design for this corner. But in the meantime, there's some other programs that are going to get started, so we'd like to talk about designating some parking tonight for this particular area. Everybody's familiar with the corner of Main and Spring. And then you'll see, this was just our baseline aerial. Let me give you something with a better picture that doesn't have trees in it. So essentially, here's a rough sketch of what that would look like. And we're talking about adding some additional sidewalk here. Let's see if I can pull something up. Right? And then designating these parking spaces, as you see, along Spring Street for the taxi service and the vans. It looks like that if you want to see a little color, maybe that's a little easier to see. But essentially, what you would do tonight, if this resolution passes, is we'll have the city attorney go in, get to Chapter 12. That's where we have designated parking spaces now, and we would do the same. We would designate these parking spaces for all the micro-mobility hub vehicles that are being used. That'll take me.
Mr. Job, I think it was in your staff report, but how many spots are we talking about?
How many spots are we taking away?
That's my
I believe we're
question.
taking away 8.
And we're having 4.
Yep.
And
Yes,
so
ma'am.
those vehicles will be there like during day hours? Is that what you're saying?
So the operational hours is Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
And after that, the
It would
public can
be
use it?
open for the public again. That's correct.
So it'd be kind of like if there's a sign that says this is for
Loading.
loading and unloading for during these hours. If it's after those hours, anybody can park in those parallel parking spots.
That's absolutely correct.
Okay.
But during these business hours, it would be designated for this hub.
But we're not talking about that big high structure on the other picture in this.
Oh,
I just
oh,
want people that
that's
saw
correct.
that picture come up, we're not voting on that, right?
Yeah, so that's a phase 2, if you will. Once we get some input from HLC, then we'll bring that back with a design and things of that nature. And there's some funding. So I've had some conversations just about that phase 2 with Mr. Marsh. There's some transportation alternative grants coming up through TxDOT. We'll probably look at a way to fund it that way for the next year or so. But in the meantime, we just need a place to park and a sidewalk to stand on while you're waiting.
I just want the public that saw that photo come up that knew that we weren't voting on that
Right.
tonight.
That's right. Tonight is only the designated parking.
And this designate will be here for the long term?
Probably until yes, I would think so. For the
Okay, I just want to make,
unforeseeable
it's not
future.
just a trial, it's a long term, that's our plan, is keep it there.
So this is I think it's only going to get more successful.
Oh, I
Right?
understand,
At least it will always be a bus stop.
I just want to make sure
I would
everybody
imagine.
understands this is not, we're not just trying something, this is, we're going ahead with a good idea.
Yep.
And feel like it'd be a good way for everybody to get around town.
Yes, I think this is going to be a great program. It really meets our multimodal focus area. It's a good project.
But
We're
Ms.
excited
Rogers,
about it.
you're making a really good point. If for some reason it's not successful and we don't need the spaces, then it'll come back
Put it
to
back.
council and we'll put it back to regular public parking. And I think that's your point,
Right.
right? Is that, but to your point, it's not like, oh, we're only trying for 30 days. This vote is to make designated
Right.
parking spots.
Correct.
Is that-
And were we thinking at one point that would go to, in the future, one day have like where they can plug in there? Because I know they're like the little taxi guys are plug-ins.
You mean like electric chargers for
Yeah.
private vehicles? Yes, I was speaking with the city manager and the assistant city manager just a couple hours ago on that very topic. So,
Well,
yes.
like our little mini taxi guys are electric, right? The carts ones.
That's
So
right.
that would be the multi-mobile, would
Yes,
those
the-
guys be able to plug in there maybe one day?
So they're going to be charging at the CART station on Hospital Drive, but yes, we may actually have charging stations here one day. They could plug
One
in
day.
now, technically. We have 110 volt power available in that area. They
You got
plug
that
into
big
just
old
a regular
cart,
plug.
that big old electric box there.
Yep, that's right, in a big electric box.
Okay, I move to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve from
Second.
Councilmember Rogers
Second.
and a second from Councilmember Ennis. Is there any further discussion? Madam Secretary, if you will call the roll.
Councilmember Rogers,
Yes,
Councilmember Ennis,
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes, as I was trying to say, I think this is long overdue, and I'm really happy, and I'm voting yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson.
Yes.
All right, council, thank you very much. Motion passes unanimously. On item 10, we have no executive session. That moves us to item number 11. And Councilmember Jackson, since you're the birthday man of the hour, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I move for adjournment.
I second.
I have a motion to adjourn at 7:56 from Councilmember Jackson. Thank you.